This week on Lemon's Car Spotting.
Hey, it is Nick and Eric. This is Lemon's Car Spotting. You find weird stuff. We talk about it. Here we go.
Oh, dude. I mean, I know you have the Daily Double playing in the background just in case, but I mean, there it is. I mean, how many places in the world has this happened in the last 25 years? I mean, this is both of the Merkur models in one place at the same time. I mean, it hasn't happened in a running way in a long time, I would say. But yeah, on the left, a late XR4 Ti, and on the right, the Scorpio sedan, both based on the Ford Sierra, and kind of the weird, unpronounceable, mystifying to Americans brand that was the German pronunciation of Mercury, I think.
Yeah, we think. I actually, I mean, that would both make sense and also be the dumbest thing ever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, tell us in the comments why Merkur.
Yeah, man. Something, it almost looks like a galaxy on the far left, also under the tarp. Maybe it's a boat. I'm not sure, but or it's something without a hatch. Anyway, I mean, there it is. Two lemons ready vehicles that are worth nothing, ready for lemons.
I mean, in a way, Merkur was, I don't know if ahead of its time is the right way to say it, but just Ford's idea that, like, hey, Ford of Europe is making kind of interesting stuff. Let's just sell them here.
Yeah.
And, since then, Ford, I think, really was on the cutting edge among the big three of just having a more homogenous lineup across all of its markets. I mean, I think that the first generation Focus, or well, even before that, the Escort was like, the quote unquote world car that they sold everywhere. Although these days, now that Americans are only buying SUVs, maybe they're going to have to start diverging again, because as far as I know, Europeans are still driving hatchbacks and wagons. But so maybe a good idea. I mean, it didn't work, I don't think. Like, did people buy Merkurs in any kind of significant way? I doubt it, but I don't know. It's the thought that counts.
Yeah.
All right. Next up. Oh, buddy. Well, it's a Subaru XT. Oh, it's a couple. Wait a minute. Where are we? Are we at a Cars and Coffee that's just Ford Raptors and Subaru XTs?
That's the most, it's Washington. That's the most specific Cars and Coffee that's ever existed.
Yeah. Oh, boy. If you were at the Raptor XT Cars and Coffee, post in the comments and let us know. Well, the Subaru XT, in today's times of Radwood, is maybe the raddest car there is in terms of all of the possible details that you could get. Starting with, of course, the on some models, the digital tachometer that goes out into the distance like pole position. And just, it had sort of flush door handles where you had to push the little thing out of the way to get, so the whole thing was flat. Obviously the wedge shape. The headrests had a one-armed floating design or something. Any opportunity they had to do a grid pattern or a sort of accordion shaped thing, they did it. The shifter is sort of a Top Gun looking thing. It had everything 80s crammed into one car possible. It was super awesome. Have we seen one in Lemons?
Yeah. Famously, the Anonymous guys out of Chicago, they had a Civic for years. They found one of these. It was a turbo. They tried to run it. It blew up. They found a wrecked WRX and they put that motor in it, and they're like, man, it's going to be great. And it lapped the field in an hour. Like, they were absolutely on it. And then I was like, man, that's messed up. Like, I think I put them in Class C. I was really worried, and I look up, and it's just sitting on the side of the track, and it was done. They took it from that race and threw it into the junkyard. They were like,
"Oh, that's too bad." I mean, they did briefly discover a loophole, wherein if you bring an XT, we're not really going to care what's powering it.
Yeah, pretty much.
But obviously, our classing and penalty system isn't perfect, but more often than not, Lemons has so many examples of self-solving problems like that, wherein, you put the Chotus or you put that car into Class C, and then it's just dominant. He's winning the race by 3 laps. And then you're like, it's 10 a.m. on Saturday. Just wait and see. This will be a self-solving problem. And 9 times out of 10, it is.
Yep. To your point, it is the most 80s car possible. They did all the really cool 80s stuff to it, except they forgot to make the car not suck. So, there's that part.
God, in college, my neighbor's roommate's girlfriend, how's that for a connection, had a Subaru XT, which, I think that's the closest connection I've ever had to a Subaru XT outside of Lemons. And I just remember it. God, I don't know what happened. Maybe it was overcharging for some reason. Anyway, this car was parked in our carport, which was directly below our apartment units, and the battery just exploded for no reason. And it was like, this was like a bomb going off. It's like, what the? Like, it sounded like your Subaru blew up. And it's like, well, it didn't, but it also did. So, anyway, that was my roommate whose literal name was Johnny Walker, which makes it very difficult to find him now. Or, sorry, not roommate, but neighbor. If I wanted to find him on social media now, it would be hard. Yeah,
I would say so. Yeah. Oh, man. Well, where do you start? Homemade air duct from something else, air dam, homemade hood scoop that looks like an industrial piece of HVAC. There's some weird rattle can stuff going on the side of it. And most crucial, not mentioned at the top of this discussion, is that it's a Ford effing Aerostar.
Yeah, it is.
This is amazing. God, I have no notes for this one either.
Well, so you can barely make out there is an external oil cooler or something on the front bumper.
Oh, yeah.
Which is he trying to do a Bozo Zoku or Kaido Racer Aerostar? Which, if so, good on you. I would say the air dam actually kind of works. The hood scoop kind of doesn't. Yeah.
It's the whole not remotely centered that really is hard to.
Yeah. But the Aerostar is, you had the Astro, the Aerostar, arguably the Previa. They were all sort of mid-engined-ish minivans. They all have their pros and cons. I feel like the Aerostar is weirdly the odd man out. Like the Previa has a cult following now. The Astro is just so ubiquitous that everybody has some story of relating to an Astro. The Aerostar, you might have known one kid in school whose parents had one. I think I knew one kid in school whose parents had an Aerostar.
Oh, man. Well, have I got a story for you? So, it's 1997, 96. And everybody in my town with a whole bunch of kids, and I'm the youngest of 5, so we have a whole bunch of kids. They were getting minivans, and my parents saw the Dodge Caravans and Plymouth Voyagers, no Toyota Previas, you should point out, and the Chevy Astros, and said, well, we should probably get a van. And they come home with a tan 1990 Ford Aerostar, and it was just an awful. I mean, it was a 6-year-old Aerostar, which, is like buying a 15-year-old car now. So it wasn't in the greatest shape to begin with. and it famously, my brother-in-law borrowed it and took my brother and I to the auto show in Chicago, and the transmission absolutely ate it on 290 in the far left lane. So we, it's a big ordeal. But yeah, you're right though. The Previa has like its own self-contained following. The Astro's kind of been adopted by custom van people because you can put the small block Chevy in it pretty easily. But like there was never, like you can't do those things with the Aerostar. Like there's no inherent following. You could probably put a 302 in one of these.
I think I've seen that done, but yeah, I wouldn't call it a common swap.
Yeah, you're not going to find like, you know, the small block Chevy people who are like, oh yeah, you just need this adapter and these engine mounts and it's fine. Like it's work to do. And this may very well be a 5-liter swap in this thing. That could be, I don't know, giving them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it's aspirational, but yeah, definitely an odd man out. And the only one of those minivans from the 80s we haven't had in Lemons. We still haven't had an Aerostar. There you go. So
yeah. All right. Next up, got ourselves. Oh, dude, it's an Isuzu Stylus.
Yep.
Somebody's restoring the handling by Lotus as we speak. Boy, what is there to say about the Isuzu Stylus? It was.
It's a 4-door Impulse, basically.
Yeah, I guess that's what the deal was. It was the sedan version of the Impulse, which was was the Impulse a 2-door coupe at that point? Or because there was a hatchback Impulse in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
That was the Isuzu Piazza that they called the Impulse here. But then there is an Impulse of this generation that's more square. And I don't know if if it was available as a hatchback or not. Anyway, if you were a practical Isuzu sports enthusiast, the Stylus was the car for you.
Yeah.
I think on paper, if you got the one that had the better motor, or maybe they all had the better, twin cam motor, it had horsepower that was relevant to the times, which is to say, 130, 140. And it was kind of an okay car. It was sort of like not too far off from a Sentra SER of the time. So I think they were pretty well received. Nobody bought them and none of them survive. The Isuzu story.
Yeah. This is a car I literally didn't know existed until 6 months ago because just didn't know. But
it's like finding the one episode of Star Trek The Next Generation you've never seen.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty exciting.
But yeah, if it's the same motor that they put in the good, quote unquote, good Impulse, it's 120 horsepower. Yeah. It's about like buying an Escort GT, totally fine. Should point out, we don't usually point out things in the comments, but this is worth pointing out that there is somebody on Instagram who you and I will both follow immediately called the Stylus guy.
Wow.
And this is probably his car, frankly.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of those cars where the percentage that exists and the percentage that are owned by one dude it's like the numbers are pretty similar.
The Stylus guy. Oh no, he's got a red one. So there you go.
Oh, well, maybe that's the parts car.
Moving on. Oh man. I'm deeply uncomfortable looking at this vehicle.
Yeah. What do they call this? Well, wow. I mean, there's a name for putting Japanese anime characters on the side of your car. There's a name for that, a Japanese name. But this is not a Japanese anime character. It appears to be Harley Quinn.
Yeah, it's adjacent, I would say.
Yeah.
I am the farthest from steeped in modern superhero movie culture.
Right.
But Harley Quinn has had a resurgence in popularity among people who probably spent most of their teens at Hot Topic. And so it kind of, the Fiat 500 is almost the right car for that. It's like I don't want to use the word edgy, but it kind of is like,
You had to be a little off the beaten path to buy a Fiat 500 for sure.
Yeah, especially one now. I mean, I don't know if they're still even making the original Cinquecento, not the original, but
the original modern. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't know.
So that means this person has willingly decided to either buy or continue owning what's probably a 10-year-old Fiat.
Yeah.
And there's a purple Wrangler in the driveway also. So, they are Fiat, Chrysler, Stellantis loyal, it appears.
Yeah. I like the optimism that this is owned by a former Hot Topic customer, because I had this pegged for like sort of a weird, dude in his mid 50s drives around in this thing. Let's go with your story because it's much easier to swallow. The Fiat 500 we have not yet seen in a Lemons race, and they sure are available for Lemons prices these days.
I saw two of them with a manual, both of them in a junkyard recently.
Yeah,
like
when they first came out, it was kind of that classic, like you were sort of one of three camps when the Fiat 500 came out. One was, I know nothing about nothing, and that thing is cool, and I'm going to buy one. You had people who knew about Fiats in the old days and said, well, a lot of time has passed since then, so let's just give it a go. And then you had the third one is, let's wait 10 years and see. And here we are. Yeah. And sure enough, there are ones in the junkyard where, the Toyota Yaris is still driving around perfectly fine. Right. But let's face it, Toyota Yaris, not nearly as cool as the Fiat 500. So kill two birds with one stone with Lemons, bring something that's cooler than a Yaris and is more easily available for Lemons prices.
Yeah, Lemons staffer Kim Harmon also has a Fiat 500 Abarth. So
there you go. There you go. I've been looking at Fiat 500Es because it's essentially like a street legal golf cart. And what's not to like about that?
Yeah.
All right. Last car of the week. Got ourselves. Oh, man, we're into 50s car town, which I don't know anything about. God, I literally don't know what this is. It's in Ohio. Is it some kind of a Kaiser?
It is. Yeah. I had to cheat, but yeah.
Okay. Well, Kaiser, God, we really need to do some research on Kaiser because we know it's like, okay, Kaiser, he's like a shipbuilding magnate.
Yep.
Made a lot of money in World War II building stuff. Then made cars, and then is related to Kaiser Permanente, the healthcare and the cement. I think that's all still the same dude. I don't know. And then obviously Kaiser Trucks, which I guess maybe is the same group of folks that built the cars. I don't know. We know nothing about Kaiser. But I always get the impression, especially on the car side, that they were sort of the battleship / military truck of cars, wherein they weren't nearly as luxurious or refined as something like a Cadillac or a Chrysler of the time. Or they also had the option of getting the cheapest possible car, which was the Henry J, which had things like trunk lid delete and other cost-saving measures.
Right.
They're interesting now for being weird because I don't think they were super popular of the time. And now I don't know that there's a huge following for them. Kind of cool to see one in this condition, which is just sort of weird driver / survivor. It looks like it's running. I don't know.
It's probably close to. Yeah. I've never seen one from this angle. And a couple of things jump out at you. One of them has got really low belt line. Like, the body line's super low, but the greenhouse is huge. And it looks like an old timey football helmet almost.
Yeah, like it really does. Yeah, it does.
But yeah, I mean, in general, it's it's contemporary. And part of the big deal with Kaiser is like, you know, it's this clean sheet of paper design, which means he spent an absolutely ridiculous amount of money making the first one. But like the whole interior layout, the way they designed all the interior was like super innovative. And then the engine was like a crappy Studebaker flathead knockoff. So, so it was like, well, that's you're right about there being no refinement in the drivetrain. And then they had no money to develop another engine ever. So everything was stuck with the flathead for the, you know, whatever 8 years they built these things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, nothing like having a flathead well into the 1960s question mark.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I've got the hooptiest for this week. Couple of Merkurs, that's hoopty. Subaru XT, not hoopty. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it to the Aerostar.
Yeah.
Because I think in this context I'm using hoopty in sort of a semi-complimentary way.
Yeah.
I think that this guy definitely made this Aerostar more interesting by doing things that are objectively not that good in terms of quality. So I think that combination makes it a hoopty, but in an endearing way. It's a good hoopty.
Yeah, there's certainly intent in the hooptiness. You know, they know what they're doing. I don't think this person has any illusions that they've made, you know, a dodgy van quality vehicle.
Right.
Lemon's build, man, Aerostar, definitely want to see an Aerostar. But I mean, if you roll up to BS inspection in an Isuzu Stylus that's actually running, I mean, that's an absolute slam dunk. Like any car that you haven't seen for at least 25 years, which I'm guessing 90% of our audience has never seen one of these, just perfect. You'll be in Class C with a fairly capable, weird car because you'll never find parts for it. So, you know, you got that working against you. But yeah, as pointed out also in the comments, it looks vaguely like a mini Impreza, somewhere between that and an Escort and a Mitsubishi Mirage, maybe a little bit. I don't know. It has the DNA of about 10 different cars if you look at the styling of it, but somehow isn't ugly. It kind of works.
Yeah, I think that's a good choice. So if you can find one and build one for Lemons, do it. And in the meantime, keep finding your weird stuff on the street and posting it to Instagram with the hashtag Lemons Car Spotting. See you next week.
I mean, all you need is a big stylus on the roof, you know, like a tablet stylus.
Yeah, from your Newton.
Yeah, that's right.